Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salam. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. So I'd like to welcome you all to week 11, covering Suratul Kahf, the 18th surah of the Quran. The surah that the Prophet ﷺ has encouraged us to read every Friday. And some of the benefits and the virtues is that whoever recites the first 10 ayats of Surah Kahf, or memorizes actually, or the last 10 ayats of Surah Kahf, they will be protected from the Dajjal. The Prophet ﷺ also said that whoever reads Surah Kahf on Friday will have a light from one Jumu'ah to the next, inshallah, and many other virtues. So last week we left off on we covered verses 60 to 65, inshallah, and then we got to the story of Prophet Musa and Khidr and the journey that they're about to undertake. And we covered, and so if you remember last week, uh, this journey that he took with his servant, the little boy who was a servant, according to some explainers of the Quran, how long was the journey? Yeah, you don't want to hear Sister Nunu, so I'm asking you.
I can't remember how long the journey was.
Mm-hmm. So some scholars say it was about a year, and some say there was like 7 years or so, right? And so
Oh
this
wow.
journey, and we relate the hadith. The Prophet is a hadith Bukhari, where the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he was given a khutbah to some of his people, and some of them asked him, uh, who's the most knowledgeable man? Who's the most knowledgeable man on the earth? And Prophet Musa said, I don't know anybody more knowledgeable than me. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had told him that there is a person now more knowledgeable than you. And so Prophet Musa wanted to meet him. And so uh Khidr. And so when Allah has said, okay, put this fish in the basket and take this servant with you, and the place where the fish escapes, that's where you're going to meet the person. And so he got on the journey because he was eager to meet Khidr. And on the journey, this wasn't like a journey where you can get in your car and get on the highway, and do 100 in the left lane. The journey was long and arduous and strenuous. And so they had stopped for a rest, and the fish had got away, but Musa had fell asleep, and the servant was up watching. So if you're traveling, somebody got to stay up and watch and be guard while the other one sleep. And so he saw the fish escape, but then he had forgot to let Musa know once they started the next journey. And so then when they got to the spot, Musa was like, where's that fish at? It's time to, open up our lunch bag. And the fish was gone. And so Musa was like, well, what happened? And he said, the fish, he didn't remember that the fish had got away. And so then Musa alayhi salam was telling me, well, that was the sign. That was the cue for us where we were supposed to meet the person. So they had to backtrack. And so this wasn't just like going back around the block or nothing. This wasn't spinning the block. This was going back a nice distance. And then that's where we left off and where they met Khidr. And so that was in ayat uh, 65, where Allah says, فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا أَتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. And that he found his servant from amongst his servants who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given mercy, has given him knowledge that was knowledge that Musa didn't know about. So this is going to be a training session, and the lesson is about humility and understanding that you might not know something because of the claim that he made. Musa alayhi salam, he said that there was no one more knowledgeable on earth than him. He was the prophet of the time, he was the leader of Bani Israel, and so he had no reason to think that someone was more knowledgeable than him. And so then we pick up the story again. Let me share the screen, inshallah. And on verse 66, we start again, inshallah. Let me see. Can you see this? Okay. Okay. About that. Get this screen together. Slideshow. Comment slide.
Did you really speak on when he was questioning him?
Yeah. Okay, so here, so there's a couple short verses tonight, inshallah. So we won't be going that long. Okay, so verses 66 and 67. So let me read them real quick. So in verse 66, he says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qala lahu Musa, hal atabi'uka ala an tu'allimani mimma alimta rushda. That's verse 66. And then 67, Qala innaka lan tastati'a ma'iya sabra. So do you have your Quran, Sister Nunu?
Yes, I do.
All right, can you read
Bismillah.
those? All right.
Bismillah. Moses said, "So shall I faithfully follow you, that you teach me of the tremendous guidance you have been taught yourself." 67. He said, "Verily, you will never be able to have any patience with me."
Okay. Tayyib, shukran. Okay, so then this is a different kind of knowledge that Musa alayhi salam is being exposed to. And so this is a request from Musa alayhi salam when he asks, can I follow you so that I can get some of the knowledge that you have? And so Musa alayhi salam is already being humbled by the journey. But even though, he's going through all these difficulties, he missed his mark, he had to go back. When he finally met Khidr, he wasn't upset or anything, and he wasn't too good to or too proud to ask for help. And so in the journey that he's supposed to be learning knowledge that he don't have knowledge of, he's also learning other knowledges, how to get over difficulties, how to be patient, how to deal with people when they frustrate you, like when the boy lost the fish, when you have to change your route. All of these things are teaching methods to humble you. When you have to come out of your comfort zone, when something that disturbs you or something that you have a plan, you have a route, you have a schedule, and then something disrupts it, how do you adapt? And so he's learning other lessons or revisiting lessons before he gets to these lessons that are going to seem like they don't make any sense, right? And so, and already being a prophet and having a status, and we know the prophets, they have attributes that are necessary for them. For instance, they have to be truthful. They have to be trustworthy. They have to be intelligent, and they can't be people who commit sins, right? So he already, as a prophet, already has a lofty status. But the beauty of all the prophets that they weren't too proud because they understand that they were servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And so the Khidr knew when he met Musa, he already knew what was in store. He already knew that he himself had the extra knowledge that Musa did not know. And so he was sent to send him, on the journey. And so the knowledge, of course, we know now, but at that time, it would these things that would happen would seem to contradict logic. And so, of course, when prophets, they are attributed with intelligence. One of their necessary attributes for all the prophets is that they have to have intelligence, and the opposite of intelligence they can't have, which is being dumb or being someone who is unintelligent, right? And so these things that he's going to experience, his mind is telling him this is not right. This is not right. And so these will contradict logic because, the prophets were thinking people. And one of the other attributes they have, one of the other words we use is fatana. Fatana means that they are able to discern things. They're able to make sense of things.
Was he like a like how Nostradamus was, like somebody could see the future because the things that he was saying, like afterwards.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. So he was in the ayat that we mentioned before that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him one of his servants that he gave him rahmah, gave him a special knowledge, and the tafsir was mean he gave him a knowledge of unseen things. Yeah. So
maybe you can see the future and
yeah. Yeah. So this was the special trait. Yeah, so this is the special trait of Khidr to also show Musa, but also to show mankind there's always going to be things that you don't know. Be humble by what you know, and be even more humble about what you don't know. Yeah. And so that was the meaning of those two verses, inshallah. So verses 68 and 69. And Assalamu alaikum, Layla, welcome.
Walaikum salam.
Would you mind reading those two ayats for me?
No. He said 68 and 69.
Yes.
Okay. Where am I at? Is it what starts with Wakaifa?
Yes.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا.
Okay, shukran. Okay, Sister Nunu, will you read the English translation?
Bismillah. And how should you bear with what is beyond your experience? 69. He said, you shall unfailingly find me, Allah willing, patient, and I will not disobey you a single order.
Okay. Yeah. I like Sheikh Noor's, it's a different translation, but I think some of the things should be a little more simpler, you know. So, and how can you be patient over the things that you do not to hate, that the news of it is overwhelming for you, meaning that how can you be patient about something you don't know about yet? And when you know about it, he's already telling them you're not going to be able to be patient. And I already, you know, and I'm telling you, you're not going to be patient, but you're telling me you're going to be patient. Yeah. And so then Musa alayhi salam says in the next verse, you know, it says, you will find me patient, inshallah ta'ala. So the explanation of it is letting Musa know that he doesn't know. Because remember, he made the claim in the hadith, there is no more knowledgeable person than me on the earth. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking him through this painstaking journey to show him. Yeah, to show him that you're gonna learn today, basically. You're gonna learn today. And you know, speaking in our terms. Okay. And so now he's letting him know that you don't know. So Khidr, he knew already that Musa wouldn't be patient. But as a prophet, he could not stand by and see things that happen and not say anything. So this is one of the characteristics of the prophets of all of Anbiya, that they cannot see things done in their presence and not say anything about it. And this is also part of the Sunnah, or one of the definitions of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is what he said, did, and what he approved and disapproved of in his presence, right? And so something that the Prophet ﷺ that he disapproved of, it was either something that was forbidden to do or something that was disliked, right? And so Khidr already knew this kind of stuff that was going to happen. So now he just, you know, setting the tone. And so Musa gave Khidr, once he told him, like, you're not going, he basically saying, you're not really cut out for this. What's going to happen? He basically saying, you're not built for this. Mm-hmm. So Musa, he said, nah, I'm like, in our turn, like, no, word is bond. I got it. I got it. But he restricted, but he said, inshallah. And so knowing that his affair is with Allah, so he said, inshallah. So, and the lesson in that is don't commit fully to anything that you are not clear about, and don't make promises you can't keep. So this is what he's teaching them in the lesson before they get to the actual lessons, you know. And so Musa realizing, you know, wait a minute, I said I won't say anything. You could, you know, basically you could trust me. And we already know what the story is, but just imagine at this time. And so he's saying, inshallah, you know, I won't say anything, right? And so the lesson is here, you know, just the lesson is to learn real knowledge, you have to humble yourself. Okay. Okay. And so verse 70. Oh, let me get it. Uthman, Assalamu alaikum, you signed on?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes.
Okay, will you read that verse for me, inshallah?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قال فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا. Sadaqallahu al-azim.
Suratul Kahf. So, Sister Noonan, will you read that in English, inshallah?
Bismillah. He said, then if you follow me, ask me of nothing before I first mention it to you.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Shukran. And so here, he's setting up, something that is a principle in Islam to follow and don't question. And sometimes we are getting it backwards. We're questioning everything and we don't follow, you know. And so this is a very important topic, inshallah, that we want to. So Khidr is making a condition. You know, he already said, you're not going to be able to be patient with me. Musa said, yes, basically, yes, I am, inshallah. But Khidr said, okay, let me make it a condition. When you see these things occur, do not ask me about them, you know, because these things that he's about to witness, that he may find objectionable, but this is also the etiquette of taqleed, the etiquette of taqleed. And so what is taqleed? What is taqleed?
I was just very accurate.
So you hear people saying that it's blind following or following someone in a ruling that you don't know the evidence. But it comes from a word that means like a necklace. A kilada is a necklace. And it also has a meaning of when you put the collar around a horse and, you know, the person guides the horse to wherever they wanted to go. You know, like a horse trainer put the thing around the horse's neck and, you know, when they pulling it around, the horse go here, the horse go there. And so in Islamic, in the Sharia, it means, you hear people say that means blind following. And then they say it's not, but it's really imitation of authoritative scholarship, meaning that the one who is in place to lead you, they are there for a purpose, right?
And you know it.
Yeah, you should know it. So for instance, I always use this example. If you went to Disney World, right, and you got on the tour bus, they got people, tour guides. Will you ask the tour guide where he studied at?
Ain't really a question that might not come to mind.
Yeah, it won't come to mind because the tour guide is there and it's a trust that he's there to show you the way. And one of the reasons that he's there, because you don't know, right? And so this is like the meaning of taqleed, is following authoritative scholarship. And so when the scholar knows and you don't know, you don't question the scholar. Not that you don't have the right to question the scholar, but because the fact that you don't know is more the reason why you should follow the scholar who knows. So this is what taqleed means. So many times in these times, people say that blind following is haram. And if we're blind following our scholars, that this is something that we shouldn't do them, and this is not correct. So the one who is an authority, you have to follow them. You have to follow them, right? But of course, you know, a principle, you don't follow anybody in anything that's unlawful or haram, anything like that. But when someone's teaching you knowledge, it's not for you to be like, you know, and this is bad etiquette. And we hear people saying all the time, what's your dalil? You know, a scholar is not required to give you proof. He's required to teach you, but he can teach you the proof. You know, but because you don't know, you don't have the wherewithal to ask. You really just have to follow.
He can make up the proof.
Yeah, he can make up the proof. You don't know if he gave you the proof. How he says it's in this book, and you look in the English. Nah, you got to look in the Arabic. If he told you, you wouldn't know anyway. So you have to trust that the scholar. And so this also goes back to what makes a scholar. So scholars are defined by scholarship, not by personalities or region or race. It's by scholarship. And so what makes up scholarship? The one who has mastered the Quran. Most of the Salaf, they memorize the Quran. They're knowing the rules of the Quran, knowing the ayats that are related to the rulings, you know, what's haram, what's halal, knowing the asbabun nuzul, knowing the reasons for the revelation, knowing the mansik and nasik and mansuk, the abrogating and abrogated verses. What verse that, okay, it meant this at this time, but then later on another verse came and abrogated that, meaning that this is no longer applicable. You know, knowing balaga, knowing language, knowing grammatical rules, you know, knowing the science of qira'ah, right? And then also the sunnah, knowing what are the rulings of the sunnah, what constitutes the sunnah. You know, the hadith are recordings of the sunnah, and the hadith are not the sunnah itself. Did you know that? Yeah. So many times people say, you know, if I follow Quran and Sunnah, okay, what does that mean? Tell me about the Quran. You know, tell me the history of the Quran. Tell me how many verses are in the Quran. Tell me that a scholar would know which verses revealed where, in Mecca or Medina. How many surahs? Which surahs were revealed in this order? Which ones were revealed in this order? Which surah that, was complete, revealed at one whole surah? Which one has a part here and a part there? That's what a scholar does. We don't know that stuff, you know? And so this is the meaning of taqlid, that the person who is, that you like the horse, and the person who is guiding you, the horse can't tell the guide, no, I want to go this way, or why you take me this way. The horse has to follow. We are horses because we don't know. We just the what we call it? What's the word I'm looking for? We like
As a
the
layman.
yeah, we the naming, but the horse is like the commodity. The horse is there to be nurtured and trained and shown the way. I mean, he has the physical ability, but someone has to show him. Just like if you go to a boxing gym, if the guy's telling you this, this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is the combination. You don't ask him where he get that from. He show you the 1, you throw the 1. He said, he showed you the combination, you do the combination. He say hit the bag 100 times, you hit the bag 100 times. You don't be like, oh nah. That's an example of taqlid. If you in basketball training, if they tell you got to run these suicides, this is what you do. If you got to shoot 100 free throws, that's what you do. It's the same thing in Islam. If the one who is in place recognizes the authority, you have to follow them. And so this is a concept that really causes problems these days, because people think that taqlid means like you're blind following somebody, as if the person who is leading you doesn't know. Yeah, and if they were, you wouldn't know anyway, unless you learn what the principles are. And this is why knowledge is split up into what you need to know as an obligation, fard ayn, and what is known as a communal obligation, fard kifaya. So the fard ayn, every Muslim has to know for themselves. What is the rulings of the prayer? What time is forbidden to pray? What is the prerequisites for prayer? A Muslim has to know this for himself, and he doesn't know, he has to ask someone who knows. So you have to depend on somebody. Everybody has to depend on somebody for knowledge. And so,
what was that? Last week I didn't know because you had the we were doing coming into Friday.
Listen.
I didn't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll be at work and I didn't know.
Yeah. So ghusl, because ghusl is required, not required. It's recommended for Jumu'ah, right? It's not an obligation, but you want to be your clean and your best, right? But knowing that Jumu'ah starts at Maghrib today, so it's officially Friday according to the lunar calendar. Yeah. So, all right, and so here when we talk about this taqlid, traditionally categories was of two peoples: the mujtahid and the muqallid. The muqallid is the one who follows the mujtahid. You know what a mujtahid is? A mujtahid is a high-level scholar who knows all of these rulings that we were talking about. And so you hear these days people say, I take from Quran and Sunnah. Okay. If you were to put the Sunnah is his seerah. The seerah is his biography, his life. And the Sunnah is what he did, said, approved and disapproved of, and also his spiritual states. That's his Sunnah, which is recorded in Hadith. Because before Hadith was recorded, they followed his example that they saw, that they heard. And then later on, this thing started to be documented and then verified, all of this stuff. And so that's why you get all these different narrations, that sometimes some are authentic, some are not, some are fabricated, but people put together a science to know how you differentiate between what is authentic and what is not,
You was talking about that one time.
Yeah. And so it's been an intricate science to where people, you got reports of some scholars, they would travel for a month just to verify one hadith. To verify, I came to find out that you were the person who said that you heard it from this person, who heard it from this person, who heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. Just like to lay eyes on you. And once they verified it, are you such and such? Yes. Okay. And then they would leave after a month's journey. So that kind of effort, and then you got people who say they don't follow hadith. you know. And so this is the question: if you ever come across these people, how was the Quran preserved? And I'm asking y'all now. You ask them, how was the Quran preserved? And also online,
Oral tradition.
huh?
Is it through oral tradition?
Yes, it was an oral tradition. The prophet, the angel Jibril alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and over the period of 23 years, he would bring him the Quran. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would memorize it. Yeah, and his companions would memorize it, hundreds of them before he passed. And so, huh? Yeah, he was.
He made him say like
They say you should use the word unlettered, not illiterate, because he wasn't illiterate. Because one of the necessary, yeah, he couldn't write. So one of the necessary attributes for prophets that they have intelligence. So he wasn't illiterate, but he couldn't read or write. So meaning he was unlettered. That's a better word to use.
He didn't have knowledge of the letters. He never seen letters before. A book, maybe.
Yeah, but just say unlettered, because not seeing a book would mean in our time that make it seem like somebody was incompetent, and he wasn't incompetent. This is the best man by a long shot, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, So what did he say? So he recited to the companions, they preserved it, they memorized it, and then they passed it on to their students like that. And then later on, it came down as a book form, right? It was written down in a book form. So when people who say they don't follow hadith, the same people who memorized the Quran and wrote it down are the same ones who wrote down hadith. So why you can't trust this, but you can trust it? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sure guaranteed that the Quran will be preserved. And he didn't guarantee the hadith in the same way, but they did preserve it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I was given the Quran and something like it, meaning the hadith, right? And so, but if you look at the signs of how they verified thousands of narrations, starting from the oral tradition, and even there's reports that some of the companions, they used to write down some hadith. Yes, they used to write down some hadith, but the Prophet ﷺ discouraged them from writing down hadith. But there are some who have manuscripts of hadith, and so some of these things are related. Then the stories told they saw this from the Prophet, and so basically verifying stuff. If you say you heard, like if you say you in this class tonight, right? You heard me say such and such. Then you told it to somebody else. Then they told it to somebody else. Then if somebody else, the other person gonna be like, wait, who told you this? Who told you this? Verify information, just like we do today. Who said that? Word? Okay, let me go. Did you say such and such? Nah, I didn't say it. Then you're known as a liar. So what you said don't count. They did this kind of stuff back then. Yeah, they don't change, And so the mujtahid, when you talk about the Quran and the Sunnah, knowing all of those rulings, knowing hadith that are authentic, knowing hadith that are weak, knowing hadith that are fabricated, knowing hadith that are used for rulings, knowing hadith that are used for virtues, and technically memorizing hadith, And a person who was considered a scholar hadith was one who memorized at least 100,000 of them. At least 100,000, and not just a narration of the hadith, but a hadith where you have in the chain a person who said it, who said this, to the companion, to the prophet, knowing all of the people in the chain, knowing their biographies, knowing their defects, knowing what the text is, and all of that kind of stuff. That's how you memorize hadith. Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, a person was either at that level of a mujtahid. Mujtahid means one who is reaching a high level of scholarship. So mujtahid comes from the word ijtihad, means to exert yourself to come to an answer. But it's not as simple as that. It means qualified scholarship for the one who has attained the rank of it. And so back in the day, it was either a person who was a mujtahid, and then the person who followed them was called the muqallid. That was it. Either you were a scholar or you were someone who followed a scholar. And so all of these categories that came in between, even like imams and sheikhs and tulabul ilm, students of knowledge, and muftis and all of these kind of things, these are all new things, right? Because people lost the concept of either reaching a high rank of scholarship or just being a follower. And when we know this, then we should not be amazed with anybody who has not reached this level. And these kind of people are not around anymore. A person who is a mujtahid, and then mujtahid, it also has categories. All right. So the one who is a and then we're in there just quickly. A mujtahid is one who can go directly to the Quran and Sunnah and extract rulings without having to follow a scholar because they've already reached a high level. And so who would be an example of a mujtahid, which is called an absolute mujtahid mutlaq? Who would be considered in history a mujtahid, or one that's a scholar reached the level who is an absolute mujtahid? I mean, he can open up the Quran, he can go through the hadiths, and he can say, this is what Allah means, this is what, and he can give you the ruling just going to the text himself. No, ain't none of that, ain't nobody like that these days. The Prophet Islam, and then his companions, and then all those first three generations, but particularly the four imams.
Okay.
So Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. So they took all of the stuff that came before them, mastered it, put it in like a curriculum, and this became the standard for the Muslims that came after. And so this is why scholars say you have to follow a madhab, because in the madhab has the standards of what you need to know. And so it's like a going to a school, a manual. And so, and this is why, and outside of that, if you didn't reach the level of them, then it was just you were someone who followed what's already came. And so in the next class, we'll briefly, but there's levels of mujtahid, right? So you hear someone that you be like, someone who, you hear titles like Shaykh al-Islam, or you hear someone that says like the Grand Mufti.
Yeah.
You know what the Grand Mufti his quality is?
No.
Is that he's only able to relate fatwas that already been passed.
Existed.
Yeah.
Wow.
He has to be able to know where you find them at. He can't give his own fatwa.
Okay.
And then and the mufti is right one level above the layman, which is us.
So like Mufti Mink.
Mufti Mink, yeah, you listen to him like, yeah, he's powerful. He only
I ain't been seeing no recent videos of him.
Yeah, like so Mufti Mink, as nice as he is and articulate and knowledgeable, he is only qualified to read. Yeah.
Not over Mink.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we all laymen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a layman, bro. What are you talking about? I am a layman. I'm not a layman, lie man. I'm lying down getting this. No, seriously. But between this shows you the level of scholarship that was on. It was either mustahid or muqallid, right? And in between that, it was different levels. Like one who can give you a ruling of the issues of their school, not every school, just their school. They know all of the issues. They know where the scholars in their school differ, and they can tell you that. Scholars who can tell you the different views in the school. One who knows this particular issue, and all of that is scholarly stuff. And then the one who is at the level of the mufti, because we hear this term mufti, we think somebody's really knowledgeable. They only able to say what is already came. But the mujtahid mutlaq, the absolute one, is the one who can go to the Quran and go to the hadith and then tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. And anybody else has to follow some type of pattern.
We don't know nobody like that.
We don't. There's nobody like that these days. I think they said the last mujtahid mutlaq maybe was a scholar named Imam Suyuti, who died in the year 911 Hijri, and we in the year 1447. So we talking about some 500 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and that's it for that. So inshallah, not next week because I'll be out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the week after that, we'll resume and we'll finish up. Yeah, I'm on a tour next week, inshallah. Oh, so now, so that ends the class there. Were there any questions? I'm sorry, I was a little excited that I had some students in person, so I didn't really check y'all online. Don't hold it against me. You got a question, Layla?
What?
Yeah, quick question. I know you kind of answered this already before, but what like people who claim not to follow a madhab, or they say, oh, you don't need to follow a madhab, what exactly are they following?
In saying that, they are following the madhab. They're saying
Okay.
that you don't have to blindly follow somebody, but and them saying that you don't have to rely on scholarship, that you can do it on your own, and that's a madhab, which has no rules on it. So they saying that anybody can ask for evidence or find the evidence. How so? If someone who doesn't follow has already came before, if you put the Quran and all 500 books of hadith in front of them, how are they going to make a ruling? Where do they start? And that's what we should ask people. You follow Quran and Sunnah? Okay. Here's the Quran. Here's 500 books of hadith. Now I'm going to ask you a ruling. You tell me it. How you going to do it? Especially when the people we live around can't read Quran in Arabic. How you going to do it? And this is why a person should just follow. The scholarship is in place for you to follow already. This Western concept of taking things for yourself, that's all nice. And you should know certain things, but we don't have the capability to learn the high standard that's already been set. We don't have that capability. We're able to process what people tell to us, right? And of course, some things might not make sense. Some things, but that's the whole thing. This story of Musa and Khidr is giving you an example of what Taqlid is like. He's taking them on the journey of things that do not make no sense. And Musa, is he dumb? No, he's a prophet. He has an attribute that he has to have intelligence as a prophet. He has to see things and correct them if he see them happening in his face. He's not dumb, but this is different. When you have special knowledge, like scholars have, it's something different. As we're going to continue in the story, and you already all know it. But there's I'm going to find a clip. There's a movie that came out in the late 70s that took the story right from the Quran. The story of Musa and Khidr. It's called The Circle of Iron with David Carradine. I know some of y'all might don't remember that kind of stuff. But some of y'all do. Some of y'all up there too. Y'all up here frauding. David Carradine. There was a story. It's called The Circle of Iron. It came out in in 1968. 1978. What was that question? Let me answer that question real quick. Late Ibn Sa'd and Al-Za'i also, yes. So there were some scholars that had the capability of being absolute mujtahids, but they didn't, because it was formulating a curriculum. They just didn't do it, but they actually had the capability. For instance, you mentioned Layth ibn Sa'd. Layth ibn Sa'd was a companion of Imam Malik, who was one of the imams of the four schools. They said that Layth ibn Sa'd, that he was more knowledgeable than Imam Malik. They said he was more knowledgeable than Imam Malik, but he didn't have any students. He didn't have any students that continued the curriculum for him, right? And so Imam Malik had students who continued to take his rulings, codify them, put them in a curriculum, and teach it to their students. And so them being preserved for over 1,000 years is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's acceptance of it. So those four imams, their schools were preserved. And there were other imams who had the capability. And we have imams now, not present, but they could have did it. Like Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari could have started his own madhab, the level of knowledge that he had. But he chose to concentrate on his Sahih, which I think took him like over 20 years to compile, right? He had the capability of starting his own madhab, but he decided he didn't, that he would just follow what already came. He would specialize on the book that he wrote. And that's why it's a great, look at everybody know the virtue of Sahih Bukhari. Anybody want to mention it? Just real quick. What is one of the main virtues of Sahih Bukhari? All right, my students that wasn't here, one of them left. So it's on y'all now. I'm leaning on y'all. Don't all answer at once. So Imam Bukhari's book is so great, it's considered after the Quran what? Yes, other than the Quran, is the most authentic book. And meaning the most authentic book in the method of how it was compiled and the efforts that he put into making sure that he only put Sahih, another translation of Sahih is authentic. Another translation is rigorously authentic. Like there is no doubt about the authenticity of these hadith in the Sahih Bukhari. because of the efforts that he, if he couldn't verify 100% or 99.9%, he would discard it, And so Imam Bukhari only collected like 9,000, just under 10,000 hadith in Bukhari, and about 2,000 of those are repeats. And so, and how many hadiths did Imam Bukhari memorize? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they said that he memorized over 500,000. And so, out of these 500,000, he only recorded close to 10,000. Where are all these other hadith? I mean, they're around in other works and stuff like that, but it just shows you why his book is accepted, globally around the world because of the effort that he put. But he could have been another imam of a madhab, but he chose to follow. And word on the street is that he was a Shafi, and I'm gonna go with that one as a Shafi, until I find something else. And then all of the great hadith scholars, they follow the school of thought. And just about every scholar, except for a few, you check the history, all of them follow the school of thought, even if they had the ability, to start their own school or be able to take from the Quran and Sunnah themselves. Many of the great scholars, they were either Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali, meaning that they followed the fiqh that already preceded. So basically, there was no reason to reinvent the wheel. There was no reason to start another school or anything like that, because what's already been preceded us, it's easy just to follow. And then the schools have capitalized on those fiqh rulings, though. So some in the school, you have scholars who differ with each other, some who added some things, some who may have disagreed with the imams of it, but they didn't just abandon them. They, stuff like that. So, and it's really an intricate science that makes up the law for us, and it's said that in over 70% of all the issues that in Islam that the madhabs agree. So, and following any of one is almost like following all of them, except that there's a little, intricacies in each one, and it's not nothing that will cause division or anything that will make one more right than the other. It's kind of like if you go to the supermarket and you buy a jar of peanut butter. You can prefer Skippy, you can prefer Jif, you can prefer Great Value, you can prefer Peter Pan. It's all peanut butter. This one might have a little more sodium content. This one might be sodium free. That's the method of the methods. They have other little things that make them a little different, but they are basically all the same. And so you follow the methodology in the same way. Another example I like to give: if you go to, people talking about following methods or choosing between them. If you go to an Ivy League school, if you go to Yale, Harvard, Columbia, NYU, Princeton, any of those, right? And the curriculum they have is the one that you follow. You don't go to Princeton and be like, okay, I want to see the dalil they're using in Yale. You don't do that. If you go to Princeton, you graduate, you're a Princeton person. If you go to Yale and graduate, you're a Harvard man or woman. You are Harvard, you're a Yale person, because you follow the curriculum that they have. And of course, you might learn other stuff, but that's your base. And so following madhab is your base, So okay, Tayyib, we're in there. Actually, I'm going to leave off the Salawat for tonight, inshallah, because we're getting close to the time of Isha. And so just encourage you to, start reciting tonight, inshallah. Let's go for, try to go for 1,000. I know there's a couple champions in here that's doing it already. I want all of us to be champions. So inshallah, I'll try tonight after this class to at least listen to Suratul Kahf in Arabic. If you can't read it, just play it on your phone or your, tablet or whatever. Just play it in Arabic and listen to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also start those salawat, because this is the crown jewel of Friday, is to, be connected with the Prophet ﷺ and sending salams and salat on him. And we mentioned last week, if you do 1,000 and every salat you send on him, there's 10 cents on you. You do 1,000. And then the rewards that come with that as you increase, you don't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for you. So try to get used to doing them. And, normally we do 100 to get started because this takes time. It takes effort. It takes patience. We're in this dunya and this running this ragged. We got to meet things. We got to do things. We got to get up and go to work in the morning. Some of us at work on right now, eating up the clock. Hint, hint. So all the stuff that we got to do in this dunya, it really behooves us to take time out of this dunya and, get our soul in order. And no better way, there's good ways, but, sending salat and salam upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and taking the time to do it because it takes time, And I encourage that, you'll see the spiritual energy that you get if you can do them all in one walk. You could just sit somewhere in a quiet room. And even if you don't, use beads or something, we got all of this technology. There's YouTube videos that you can go and there shows 1,000 salats on there. And I know one that I used before. It's under an hour. You're taking an hour out of your day to raise the rank of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam by sending salutations and peace on him. And man, how that comes back is like it's unimaginable, Or you don't have to do it all at one time. This video is 100 recitations. You play it whenever you get 15 minutes. You do this 10 times between now and Maghrib tomorrow, you got 1,000. If you do it 5 times, you got 500. If you do it at least 300 times, which is the daily recommended amount, do 300 salawat a day. And you'll find that it gets easier the more you just do it, And some of the spiritual masters said if you do 300 a day, that you never have to worry about any of your worldly matters. That don't mean they're gonna go anywhere.
You just ain't gotta worry about
You just ain't got to worry about it. But not in worrying about it and putting your focus in this, because you send the salat as dua, then these things will happen. But if you worried about them, that makes them even worse. But they will go. They won't go away, but they'll be taken care of. And so that's what we have to have that belief in mind, inshallah. So I'll stop there. I thank you all for tuning in. Uthman said, I'd recommend Suratul Kahf by Mahmoud Khalil al-Khusri. It is very clear to follow along for those who listen to it. Yes, Khusri is one of the best reciters, and it's nice and slow paced, inshallah. And so take some time. We'll listen to the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very soothing. The Quran by itself, just listening, is healing. And we have stories of people who became Muslim just by hearing the Quran, not knowing what it said. SubhanAllah. These are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So give them the diligence that they do. All right, so inshallah, we'll stop there. If there's no other questions. Okay. Yeah. Okay, mashallah. Okay. Yeah, so that's a good recommendation from our Ustad Uthman Khalil al-Khusri, mashallah. So there are no other questions. We'll stop. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.